Hi, it's Josie, and today I would like to talk to you about feeding your horse, and probably more about how I feed my horses, and hopefully that will give you some tips and tricks that you might be able to use. I just need to preface this video by saying that I am not a vet nor an equine nutritionalist, but I have spent probably 20 years trying to find the best way to feed my horses so that they are the healthiest they can be, and I'm going to share with you what I've found suits my horses. Let's start with some basics. Horses need to eat 1 to 1.5% of their body weight in dry matter a day to keep their gut happy and healthy. You may be surprised to see how much that should be. So what does that equate to? That's a 300 kilo horse having 3 to 4.5 kilos of dry matter a day. Or if you work in pounds, a 600 pound horse having 6 to 10 pounds of dry matter a day. If you've got a 500 kilo horse, it's 5 to 7.5 kilos of dry matter, or 1,100 pound horse, 11 to 16 pounds of dry matter a day. My horses sit in the next realm of 700 kilos because mine sit about 720 to 750 kilos, both Spider and Rebel, and they require 7 to 10 kilos of dry matter a day, or that equivalent to about a 1,540 pounds, so 1,540 pound horse requiring 15 to 23 pounds of dry matter a day. So your dry matter that you're feeding your horse is your hay and chaff. So remember, if you are feeding chaff, chaff is just chopped up hay. I personally feed very little chaff and I prefer to increase the hay. And why do I do that? Because when my horses are chewing the hay, as they need to because it's longer stalks, they cover it in saliva. That saliva has enzymes in it which actually helps start the digestive processes and also keeps your gut healthy. So chaff is chopped up little tiny pieces, obviously, that your horse can scoff and he doesn't have to chew it. And so hay can help to assist the digestion process. Obviously, if your horse has got bad dentition, bad teeth, or can't eat hay, you can make it up in chaff. When it comes to the amount you feed, as I said, it's obviously every horse is different, but there are also horses that require different rations to that. A late pregnant mare or a lactating mare will eat you out of house and home while she's feeding herself and her baby. Obviously, a older horse may have more requirements for feed or less requirements for feed. And young and growing horses will also require a different amount of feed. That's why it's a good idea to get yourself a good resource, a good book, and have some base understanding of how you feed your horse. If you own a horse, the onus really is on you. You don't have to have a scholar's degree in it, but you really should have a good base understanding. I'll link some books in the description below if you'd like to go and have a look. So the other little tip I'd like to give you with feeding your horses, particularly if they're in pasture, is if you have more than one horse in the paddock together, you should put at least one more pile of hay out. You can get the entire feed that you're going to feed those 3, 4 or 5 horses, but break it up so there's at least one spare pile of hay somewhere so that the poor horse at the bottom of the pecking order doesn't have to fight. Well, he's not going to fight for food. He's going to go without and just keep getting bumped from pillar to post. So one thing I'd like you to know is you should feed your horse by weight. His weight and by the weight of the feed, and not by volume. And hopefully I will be able to explain that to you now. So how do you know what your horse weighs? Well, unless you can actually get to a vet where you can put them on some scales, a weight tape is probably the best idea. It just gives you a rough estimate, and it goes around over the highest point of their wither and down underneath the girth. And if you use a weight tape and put it in the same spot all the time, you may not be 100% accurate on what your horse weighs, but you'll at least get to see if he's fluctuating in weight. So when you're checking the weight of your horse, You need to know where to check as well to know if your horse is fat or if he just has a big hay belly. I've seen so many people say, oh my gosh, the horse is fat, when all it really had was a hay belly. So if you look at this diagram here, you will see where you need to look for the fat deposits on your horse to work out where he is. So what do I mean by feed by weight and not volume? I have got here 2 biscuits of hay. So I've got a Oaten and a Meadow hay. This weighs 1.3 kilos. This weighs 2.4 kilos. So this is not quite double that one, but they're about the same volume, but very different in weight. Now, if you watch my videos, it will not surprise you that I'm a little bit pedantic about how I feed my horses. So I have a set of scales that I use to weigh my hay. My hay is fed in hay nets, so it doesn't blow away around here, and I literally weigh them so I know what they weigh. I also have measuring scoops, and I've written on the measuring scoops what each thing I put in there is weight. So I feed my horse, although it's by volume because I'm using a scoop, I know what it weighs. So this has 380 grams of speedy beet or a beet fibre when it's full, so I know how much this weighs. This one's for my pelleted feed, and I know it's about 1.5 kilos. And this is 1/3 of a cup. So a little tip for you is to go and get some disposable plastic measuring containers. I've also got a tablespoon, which I'll show you in a minute, so that you can accurately measure your feed, and you are doing it by weight rather than volume. So what do I feed my horses? I feed my horses hay. They get a beet, they get a pellet, they get some chaff, they get some vitamins and mineral mix, and they get some salt. I don't feed my horses any grains. They don't need it. They look good enough on what they're on. They're fit, they're healthy, they're shiny. In fact, most people do not really need to feed their horses grain unless you're doing a very, very high level athletic work with them or they're a poor doer. So what sort of hay? I feed meadow hay. Like I said earlier, the cereal hay around here is so high in sugars that my horses were getting extremely fat. So this is a meadow hay. I'm not quite sure what you call it in America. In the UK, you would call it pasture hay. So it's basically what grows out in the paddocks naturally. They have been topped with some oversown ryegrass, and not the ryegrass that gives you rice staggers. I think it's an Italian rye. So my horses are getting that at the moment. So because I'm feeding that and now their weight's getting better, I actually feed a lucerne and rye mix. So this is some lucerne and some rye to increase the protein for my boys. And my old horse, who is retired, he needs more food, so high nutritional content, sorry. So he gets this beautiful oaten hay that's here. I feed my guys a beet fibre. The reason I feed this is not really because of the nutritional content of it, because I feed them that vitamin and mineral mix you saw and they sift it. So this has to be fed wet. You must soak this sort of stuff first. If you don't soak it, you'll end up making your horse sick. So this is what it looks like dry, and I have some soaking here. So this is what it looks like when it's wet. And of course, when I mix their vitamin and mineral mix in that, they can't sift it out and they love it. I feed a pelleted feed. So this is no grain. This really is just a vitamin and mineral and hay mix. If you look at the ingredients in it, it really is just some cereal hay and some vitamins and minerals. Now, the back of the bag of this tells me what the vitamin and mineral content is. So I've just topped up my horses with the vitamins and minerals that I feed them to meet their nutritional needs, because they don't get I don't feed enough of that to meet their vitamin and mineral requirements. And this is just some chaff. Obviously, as I said, chaff is just chopped up hay. This is the vitamin and mineral mix that I feed my horses. It is, it's Equilibrium in Australia. I have a measuring container, and so they just get the little one twice a day. And with what that holds and what's in those pellets there, my horses get their vitamin and mineral needs met. They also get some salt. So I feed the salt purely, to be honest with you, especially in the winter, to help my horses drink enough. I measure it. This here is, they get a tablespoon each a day, my big horses. Now, I just want to tell you that this actually is an American tablespoon, so it's a 15 ml tablespoon. Those of you in Australia probably don't, maybe if you're not cooks, don't realise that there's two different types of tablespoons. There's an Australian measure and there is a US measure, and they recommend that the horses get 1.6 to 1.8 grams of salt a day per kilo of hay that you feed them. So I've worked out with my boys that means they require around about 15 grams of salt, which is an American tablespoon. You need to do the maths yourself. Just don't feed your horses salt willy-nilly. I would love it if you would let me know in the comments if you were as pedantic about weighing and measuring your horse feeds as I am. Your horse is at your absolute mercy with what you feed him. He has no choice, obviously, except what you give him. I hope this video has helped you understand a little bit more about feeding your horses. Don't forget, I've popped some links in the bottom for some books if you'd like to just broaden your knowledge a little bit more. Thanks for watching, guys.